Hi, I'm Tom Lydon, editor of ETF Trends, here in Chicago at the Morningstar ETF Conference. And I'm here with Dave Abner, head of capital markets with WisdomTree. Dave, thanks for being with us.
It's great to be here, Tom. It's good to see you again.
You just got off a panel, and it was pretty back and forth about what was going on. Tell us some of the key points, because it was interesting.
Yeah, so there's a few key things here. ETF trading education is becoming more important than ever. And the good news is that people have been paying attention to what we've been telling them over the last 4 or 5 years. And the way we know that is we're seeing asset flows move down the curve into funds that trade lower volume. So people have really been learning the mantra and paying more and more attention to ETF trading.
So in the past, people would warn, if it's under 50 million, you really don't want to buy that ETF. What's the real story?
The real story is this. Asset levels don't matter in terms of the ETF you're buying. So every ETF starts off the same at about $2 million, $2 to $5 million in seed, and they grow. They grow by investors coming in early to the funds. A critical piece that people have just realized is actually volume doesn't matter in the ETF as it trades anyway. Volume is a backwards looking indicator. It really shows you how many shares of an ETF have traded in the past, not how many shares you can potentially trade. So people have really learned the liquidity story. They've stopped using volume as a metric, and they're moving on to more sophisticated measures like implied liquidity and things like that.
So the idea is the underlying, as long as it's liquid, great. But then we also have a responsibility when we're trading to do a few things, which is...
That's right. You've got to educate yourself.
Yeah.
You need to understand what is in the fund and how those assets trade. So it's not just a function of looking at the ETF. Investors, users of ETFs need to know this is an exchange-traded vehicle. All of that exchange trading is a function of what the fund holds. So you want to be cognizant that if you're trading Europe, for example, Europe is open during our trading day only in the morning and not in the afternoon. You might find better liquidity in a European fund if you trade before 11 a.m. versus after. You want to be using limit orders. You want to be focused on a few specific things like that.
Yeah, good point. And as more advisors and institutions and even high net worth investors are coming, we got to remember those things.
Yeah, and I put together a list of the top 10 keys to trading ETFs. I think everybody should get their hands on it. We have it on our website. It's a really accessible piece for people.
We'll try to get that to our readers too.
Awesome.
Before I let you go, lots going on at WisdomTree. So we're hearing a lot about what you're doing. What's most exciting right now?
It's great. Last year at WisdomTree was the year of Japan, and this year at WisdomTree is really the year about Europe. We're seeing a lot of asset flows into our European small cap. We're seeing a lot of asset flows into our hedged European currency vehicle. So the vehicle with currency, the concept of currency hedging is still very strong with investors, and they're paying attention to the vehicles we have accessible. We're also doing something very interesting. We're growing our business in Europe. So we have about 15 people on the ground now in Europe. At WisdomTree Europe, and we're seeing a lot of growth there. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, that's great. It's great seeing you, Dave, and thanks again for stopping by. You guys continue to do great work.
Thanks for having me, Tom. It's great to talk.